Have you ever felt like the world around you is too fragile to be real? As if everything, conversations, commitments, even familiar faces, were wrapped in a light mist that could vanish at any moment? Maybe one morning, you looked out the window and, for no apparent reason, felt like something just didn't make sense. As if your life were a story being told by someone you don't know. And deep down, without being able to explain it, you felt that there was something wrong with what people call reality. It's not delusion, it's not overthinking. This kind of perception lives in people like you. More introspective, more intuitive, more sensitive to the unseen. People who notice what others miss, people who ask, what, after all, is real? That same restlessness once consumed an ancient philosopher named Zhuangzi. One night he dreamed he was a butterfly. He flew lightly, freely, with no past, no name, no desire to be anything else. In the dream, he had no memory of being human. He was simply a butterfly living in its simplicity. But when he woke up, a strange thought struck him. What if he was actually a butterfly dreaming he was a man named Zhuangzi? The question wasn't poetic, it was existential. Because if, even in dreams, he could forget who he was, how could he be sure that what he now called awake wasn't just another dream? A more elaborate one. Maybe everything you see when you open your eyes is part of a construction. Maybe people, voices, pain, and gestures don't exist outside your perception. Maybe what you call reality is simply the way your mind organizes the signals it receives. And if that's true, if it's all just a long chain of experiences happening only inside you, then what exists when no one is looking? What remains when the world fades away? Philosophy calls this radical doubt, and for some, it's just an intellectual game. But for those who feel too much, for those who carry a painful kind of clarity from an early age, this doubt is an open wound. It's not just, what if it's all an illusion? It's, what if I've been alone all along, projecting an entire world just to keep from going mad with the emptiness? This question takes us deeper. Because even when we cling to everyday certainties, the texture of a cup, the sound of the wind, someone's gaze, something in us remains skeptical. Something in us knows this could all be just an internal theater. That what we call outside might never have truly left the inside. And that idea, as terrifying as it seems, also hides a silent kind of freedom. If everything is consciousness, then nothing exists beyond you. And it's in this abyss, intimate, incommunicable, that the second layer of doubt begins. Because even if the world around you is an illusion, it still moves, still speaks, still pretends to have a will of its own. And the strangest thing is that these figures around you, they seem to feel, too. But do they really? Maybe the most unsettling part is this. People move, react, show emotions. But how can you be sure they're truly feeling? You see someone cry, but you can't touch the pain inside them. You hear laughter, but you can't enter the place it came from. All you have are signs, sounds, gestures, words. The experience of another is always a surface, and no matter how hard we try to connect, there's no bridge that takes us to the center of someone else's consciousness. You realized this very early on. Maybe you tried to explain what you were feeling and no one understood. Maybe you picked up on subtleties everyone else ignored, and it made you question your own sanity. But it wasn't madness. It was just the burden of being awake in a world where no one can prove that others truly feel. Where everything might be just a well-staged performance inside your mind. Philosophy calls this the problem of other minds. And it can't be solved with logic, nor with empathy. Because no matter how much you believe someone has feelings, you don't see those feelings, you interpret them. You rely on your own experience to suppose that the other must feel something similar. But what if they don't? What if the entire universe around you is just a mirror, reflecting possibilities, without a single spark of real life behind it? The illusion of the senses starts to show its cracks. You hear a piece of music and feel it touching something deep within you. But that sound is just a vibration in the air, interpreted by your brain. You see the face of someone you love, but what you actually see are shapes and colors that gain meaning inside you. Nothing enters your mind directly. Everything passes through filters, and filters can deceive. You believe you're seeing the world, but in truth you're only seeing interpretations of the world. And that extends to other human beings. You don't see people, you see signals. And those signals can be simulated, imitated, copied. It's possible that everything you call people is nothing more than a construct of your mind, trying to fill the void with some imagined company. A full theater, complete with costumes, voices, and plot, all designed to keep you from noticing the absolute silence where you've always been. And when that possibility settles in, even for a second, something inside you shifts. Because if no one feels what you feel, if no one is truly out there, then all that's left is you. Your memories, your fears, your dreams. All that remains is this core of consciousness that observes everything and has never itself been observed. And it's from this point that a radical idea begins to emerge. What if, in fact, nothing exists beyond your mind? When everything around you feels unreachable, like a landscape seen through thick glass, a disturbing question arises, one that's hard to ignore. What if everything that exists is you? Not as an ego or a body, but as pure awareness, as the only real presence, alone, in the middle of a carefully crafted illusion. This idea has a name: solipsism. It claims that only your mind exists, that everything else, the sky, the trees, the voices you hear, the bodies crossing your path, are just internal manifestations, like dreams within a dream. It may sound extreme, but when you realize you've never directly touched anything outside your perception, the world starts to feel less solid than it should. You can touch a wall, but what you feel isn't the wall. It's your nerves reacting. You can hear someone's voice, but you're not hearing the person. You're hearing waves converted into electrical impulses interpreted by your brain. The world, as you know it, has never been delivered to you as it is. You live inside a capsule of perception, and if everything that happens within it can be simulated, how do you tell the real from the illusory? Solipsism is not a delusion of grandeur. It's an ontological solitude, a suspicion that no matter how many billions of people or galaxies may be out there, none of it is truly out there. It's like living on a stage with no audience, performing a play behind closed curtains. What remains, then, is this silent point of observation. The only thing you can say with certainty exists: your own mind. And this possibility isn't just philosophical, it's existential. It shakes your trust in connections, in the words you hear, in the looks you receive. Because if everything is a projection, then where is the other? Who hears you when you speak alone in the dark? Who understands you when you cry in silence? Maybe no one. Maybe everything you've ever longed for, understanding, comfort, genuine presence, never came from outside. Maybe it was always you, trying to hold yourself together from within, trying to create images that could keep you whole. And if that's true, then the question is no longer whether the world exists or not. The question becomes, what is this consciousness that creates everything? Who is this presence that carries the weight of an entire reality within? Maybe that's why certain films strike us so deeply. Not because of the plot, but because they tell us, without saying it directly, what we've always felt but never dared to speak out loud. In The Matrix, Morpheus looks into Neo's eyes and says, "What is real?" If you're talking about what you can feel, smell, taste, and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain. And in that moment, everything trembles. Because for the first time, someone verbalizes what you already suspected. Your reality might be just a simulation, a creation of the mind in response to stimuli. You live inside a body. But everything you know, everything you love, fear, remember, reaches you through your senses. And the senses, though they feel reliable, are limited and easily deceived. All it takes is a fever, a vivid dream, a side effect from a medication, and what once felt solid starts to dissolve into thin air. You see colors, but only within a narrow spectrum. You hear sounds, but many go unnoticed. You smell things, but only some. What we call the world is just a tiny, fragile slice of something we may never fully grasp. So how can we trust a reality that only ever appears to us in fragments? And more than that, how can we trust a reality that depends on such a vulnerable body, such a sensitive mind, such a delicate state of consciousness that can shift at any moment? If you live inside interpretation, not inside the world itself, then everything you see might be just an elaborate simulation. A tactile, emotional, visual illusion, custom-made to convince you that you're awake. But who can guarantee this isn't just another dream? A recurring, complex dream, where every detail has been carefully crafted to appear coherent, just so you don't wake up? And in this increasingly unsettling scenario, Zhuangzi's question gains new layers. Not just, am I the one dreaming, but, if this is a dream, where does the sense of reality come from? What makes something real isn't matter, it's the experience it evokes. And if the experience is happening inside you, then so is reality. It always has been. And it's at this point that doubt starts to blend with awe. Because maybe you're not trapped in a false world. Maybe you're simply seeing the world the way it's always been. A reflection of what happens within. And this isn't a new idea. It's an ancient suspicion, refined over centuries of thought, far beyond fiction. It's what Kant called appearance. Because for him, the world we perceive is never the world in itself. Everything we know, objects, landscapes, even time and space, doesn't exist as something absolute external to us. They are representations, frameworks built by our own minds to organize what would otherwise be incomprehensible. The world in itself, as it truly is, remains hidden, inaccessible. What we see, feel, and call reality isn't what things are. It's how our consciousness interprets them. Imagine that for a moment. What we call a tree might have no shape, no color, no scent outside of our perception. It might not even have a separate existence. What makes it a tree isn't what it is, but how you experience it. And that's true for everything. The world doesn't reveal itself. It's built by the way you perceive it. And that explains why, sometimes, two people can live the exact same moment and walk away with opposite memories and emotions. Because they weren't really in the same place. They were in different realities, shaped by internal stories, expectations, wounds, hopes. Each consciousness lives in its own world. And the most unsettling part is realizing that even among billions of people, maybe only you see the world the way you do. This idea echoes the same sensation as the Matrix. Not because we're inside a giant computer, but because maybe we've never actually left our own minds. Maybe the entire sensory system, the whole apparatus of perception, was designed just so consciousness wouldn't lose itself in the vastness of the void. The world appears as an image, but that image doesn't prove there's something behind it. It only confirms that perception exists. And if what we perceive isn't what is, then what remains solid? If everything is a projection, where is the real? Kant doesn't give us easy answers. He forces us to look inward and admit, we don't know. And maybe we never will. Because the veil of perception never breaks. It only changes form. You can refine your sensitivity, but you'll still be bound to the very structure that allows you to perceive. It's like trying to escape a labyrinth built from the walls of your own mind. That's why, even when we try to reach for something more, we feel this invisible limit, this blind spot where certainty ends and mystery begins. It's the moment when everything around us seems to dissolve, and only the mind remains, the single window between what we believe we're living and what we'll never be able to touch. And then, the question shifts direction. Because if the external world is always filtered through perception, then maybe the only place where truth can emerge is the very center of the one perceiving. Everything you know has passed through that window. Reality, from your first cry to the last silence you heard, has always existed inside. You can cross continents, climb mountains, dive into oceans, but you'll never leave yourself. Your mind is not a place where experiences come in. It's the only place where they happen. The world, as you see it, is not out there. It's always and only what's unfolding within. It's like living in a house with a single window. And everything you know about the outside world depends on what you can see through it. Sometimes the light comes in and captivates you. Other times the window is foggy, and everything seems blurry, shapeless, senseless. But the world doesn't change. What changes is the state of your perception. And when this becomes clear, something inside you breaks and opens. Because for the first time, you understand that maybe you've never truly known anyone, or any place, not even yourself. You've only known images, impressions, echoes. What seemed solid may have only been a reflection in the glass. And if everything you see is an internal projection, then maybe there is no objective world outside. This is the essence of subjective idealism. The idea that everything that exists depends on the mind perceiving it, that there is no reality without an observer, that the universe isn't out there, waiting for you, but is created along with your gaze. In every moment, a construction. In every experience, an interpretation. You don't live in the world, you live inside your way of seeing it. This doesn't make you crazy. It makes you human. Deeply human. Because everyone lives this way, though few realize it. Most believe in the solidity of things. They trust in words as if they were faithful mirrors, in relationships as if they were guaranteed. But you, who feel too much, who see what others don't, you know there's something strange behind it all. A silence, a gap, a background noise that no one talks about. It's the absence of the real, or maybe the presence of something we don't yet know how to name. And when everything seems to collapse into this uncertainty, a subtle but transformative question arises. If everything depends on perception, what happens to what isn't being perceived? If you close your eyes, is that book on the shelf still there? If no one's around, does the chair continue to exist? Someone, centuries ago, asked this same question, and he found a bold, almost poetic, answer to what it means to exist. George Berkeley, an 18th century Irish philosopher, dared to say what many fear to even think. To exist is to be perceived. Nothing exists outside the eye that sees, the ear that hears, the mind that feels. A book, a stone, a tree. All these objects exist only as long as they are being perceived by someone. Outside perception, they are merely dormant possibilities, waiting for consciousness to bring them into being. You might wonder, what about when I'm alone? When there's no one around to perceive the world? Berkeley's answer is unsettling and, at the same time, comforting. Everything continues to exist because there is always a mind perceiving. For him, that mind was divine, a constant consciousness sustaining the universe. But even this idea doesn't escape the central point. Existence depends on the one who perceives. Maybe you've felt this intuitively. The sensation that when you leave a room, it vanishes from your reality. That places where you are not are like blank pages waiting to be written. Or that when you return to a place, it somehow recognizes you, as if the world only takes shape when it's touched by your presence. And if that's true, then what we call reality isn't a fixed stage. It's a field of perception in motion. You move, and the world lights up around you. You step away, and it returns to darkness. Every object, every person, every gesture, all of it needs your gaze to exist as experience. But this perception has a price. The radical loneliness of being the only point from which everything emerges. Because if things only exist while they're perceived, then the universe isn't made of things. It's made of perceptions. And those perceptions happen only inside you. You are the silent center of everything, the flame that illuminates what exists. That's why, sometimes even surrounded by people, you feel alone. Because deep down, you sense that no one is truly sharing the same reality as you. That each person lives in their own sphere of perception. And that, no matter how many words, hugs, or glances are exchanged, there's no way to merge one consciousness with another. Existence remains a closed mirror. Only you see what you see. Only you feel what you feel. And that's why, among all the doubts, one rises like an anchor. If everything could be an illusion, if everything depends on perception, then what, after all, is real? Is there anything that doesn't rely on sight, or touch, or memory? There was a man who asked the same question, and he found, in doubt itself, the only certainty strong enough to support the rest. And what if it's all true? What if you really are the only conscious being, drifting through an ocean of empty forms, of simulated appearances, of landscapes that only exist when you look at them? What kind of explanation could possibly hold such vast loneliness? Some might say this is all a simulation, that you're inside a system so advanced it can create voices, memories, textures, entire atmospheres, like a virtual reality game where every detail exists only when needed. The people would be programs, artificial intelligences that move, respond, interact, but don't feel. Other possibilities are even more unsettling. You could be asleep somewhere, and this entire life might be just a dream. Long, intense, with its own rules, but still, a dream, a suspended state, a delusion from which one day you might wake up. Or maybe you're the only real being inside an incomprehensible experiment. The sole point of consciousness surrounded by puppets, a soul tested by silence. The entire universe could be a distorted mirror, created for one reason only, so you, alone, might discover something that has yet to be revealed. As if life were a theater built solely to observe how you respond to the absence of others, to the absence of real answers. And then comes the most haunting thought of all. What if you've always been alone? What if the consciousness you carry, that flame that never goes out, is the only thing that has existed from the very beginning? Every voice you've heard, every love you've lived, every story that touched your soul, could have been fragments of a grand narrative you created, to bear the emptiness, to give existence some kind of meaning, to remind yourself that you are still here. Maybe you created time so you wouldn't get lost in the eternal. Maybe you invented space so you could imagine distance between yourself and others. Maybe you dreamed up faces, hugs, words, just to convince yourself that you were never completely alone. But deep down, you always knew. There was always something that didn't quite fit. There was always this silence at the bottom of everything, like an echo from a place no one else inhabits. And maybe, one day, you'll wake up. Not in fear, not in sadness, but with the strange and profound certainty that everything, absolutely everything, was only you. You creating paths, you trying to find yourself, you imagining the other, you dwelling in the void, and discovering, at last, that nothing exists beyond you. If you enjoyed this content, check out my exclusive ebook linked in the first pinned comment. Don't forget to like the video and leave a comment sharing your thoughts. What do you think about all this?